Hello, how is everybody doing? So it's time to talk browsers, specifically Chromium based browsers, because they are no longer going to be supporting older versions of Windows. And I want to talk to you about what that means, what your options are, and what, if any, concerns there are around sticking with what you've got. So let's get this party started, shall we? Hello and welcome. So we're talking about the Google Chrome browser and really Chromium-based browsers, which I'll get into in a minute. But the short version of the story for you TLDR folks is that the decision has been made and it's actually already in place, where they are no longer going to support earlier versions of Windows. So what are we talking about? Specifically for this, we're talking about Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, for those of you who like to split hairs, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2, which really are different things. So we're going to talk about what this means, what the impact is, what your alternatives are, and what, if anything, you need to know about this particular situation as far as using your browser from day to day. But this cracked me up. I have to share this. Marcus is being funny. Feels like every week something is ending. Yes, every week something's ending, and every week something's beginning. This is the circle of life, right? And I wish I had Murphy handy so I could hold him up and do the Lion King thing here. So you'll just have to imagine that. All right, so let us go ahead and start this conversation, shall we? Get that down. All right. So first of all, why am I saying Google Chrome browser and Chromium-based browsers? So Google Chrome is a branded browser from Google, amazingly enough, that is pretty popular. A lot of people use it. But they also make available a lot of the engine that runs behind the Chrome browser to other providers. So there are other people out there, talking about Microsoft Edge, but a bunch of others who actually use the Chromium engines in order to, as the base for their browser. Now, what they do, it's not just another copy, let's say, of Chrome. They're taking those engines and then they're doing their own customizations to it. So they are still different browsers. But when a big change happens to the core engine, it does impact more than just the Chrome browser. All right. So specifically what we're talking about, may already be repeating, but no, I did. We talked about which versions of Windows, right? Yes. Okay. Sorry. All right. So let's get into the meat of this, shall we? All right. So this is already happened. So I'm recording this at the end of January 2023. And this has already, this is cut dry. This has happened. So Chrome version 109, and you can check the version of Chrome that you have. If you go up to the three dots in the upper right corner, I think it's about, no, it's help and about. That will show you the version of Chrome that you've got, or Chromium, depending on which one you're using. So that's it. That is the last time these older versions of Windows are going to get any updates for the browser. Now, this includes new features. This is security updates, which is the worrying part, and bug fixes. We'll get into that in a second. So I'm going to just read you the short version of the announcement. So it's Chrome 109 is the last version of Chrome that will support Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2. Chrome 110, which is scheduled for release the beginning of February 2023, will be the first version of Chrome that requires Windows 10 or later. So they recommend making sure your devices are running Windows 10, which is not always an option, which we will talk about, in order to continue receiving Chrome updates. And this, they're pointing out, matches the announcement from Microsoft that Windows 7, ESU, and 8.1 have reached the end of the support as of January, the same period. So what they're doing is they're tying their requirements to the Microsoft end of life period. So basically, Microsoft saying, okay, you know, these old versions are not getting supported from us anymore, and so the Google Chrome team is like, yep, us too. So that's where we're at. Now, the important thing to point out here, and let me make sure that we're very clear about this. This does not mean that Chrome will stop working on your older devices. That's not the case at all. It will continue to work, but it's not going to get updated, which means that over time, it's going to become less and less secure, which is an issue we will talk about. All righty. Oh, Marcus is in rare voice here. No more Windows XP. Yeah, unfortunately, that ship has also already sailed. So yeah, remember that one? I remember that one. Wasn't that long ago. Gamers Paradise. I don't think for given the work that I know you do, I'm guessing you're not on an older version, but maybe you know somebody who is using an older version, which is what we will talk about in a minute. But Marcus is in agreement, which I feel the same way. It's like, it seems reasonable to say that if Microsoft's no longer supporting it, neither are we, right? That seems reasonable to me too. Okay, so let's talk about this. Actually, before we talk about this, let me introduce myself because you may not have known me before. So if you're new here, welcome, welcome. My name is Kathleen. I'm here as your tech coach. The short version of the story is technology is my day gig. I design and build software applications. It's also my hobby. So I live in this world 24/7. Like this is my idea of fun. Not everybody's idea of fun, and I get that. Also, I know that not everybody has, somebody to talk to. So all my friends, family, coworkers tend to turn to me when they need advice, when they have a question about technology, if they're looking for help with something. And over time, that's kind of extended to their friends and family and coworkers. And so I realize that not everybody has somebody to talk to, which is why I do this show every week, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And you are welcome to come and hang out with us. I hope that I can help you in some way. If you do have something that you need help with, you can reach out to me here, yourtechcoach.com. And I am more than happy to do what I can for you. Okay, so let's get back to this. All righty. So we talked about that. Okay, so why do we care, right? Why is this a thing? New features, like not getting new features, that could be an issue for some people. They do constantly keep updating these browsers, and that is definitely a thing. Bug fixes, definitely a thing, right? If you run into a bug and you're on an old version of Chrome or Chromium, because you're running an older version of Windows, they're not going to fix that bug, and so that's going to be an ongoing issue for you. That said, to me, okay, your mileage may vary. But to me, the fact that you're not getting security updates for the browser on these older versions of Windows is the thing that I really want to make you aware of, because that could be a big problem. It could be a problem for you, right? Because you may end up with malware or other horrible things on your computer because you're not getting those updates, right? Most people don't realize that depending on the browser and depending on what's going on in the world at the moment, your browser is constantly being updated, even when you're not having to click a button to say update. And they're specifically doing that for things like the security updates and also some bugs. But the security updates are such a big issue because A, it protects you, but B, it protects the internet at large, right? Because the people who are doing the nasty things out there are looking for computers, resources, sites that are not protected, because that's how they can plant their crap and spread it across the internet. So it's not just a you thing, it's an us thing. So that's why it's a big deal. Now I understand, and so let's talk about this. You may not be able to update your version of Windows. Right now, there are some people who just can't, like they're on an older machine and the older machine doesn't support Windows 10. You may be working in a situation where you don't have control over your equipment, and this happens a lot. So you're trapped on whatever version is on your machine. And that may be because the company has control issues, or it could be for a legitimate reason. So you may be using a particular software application that may be a little antiquated and will not run on a newer machine. So that's why they're keeping you on an older machine. This happens a lot in specific industries, not to freak anybody out, but I know healthcare, a lot it happens, particularly for devices. So it may not be your fault, right? And I'm not saying that not being able to upgrade because you've got older equipment and you can't afford a new computer. To me, that's not your fault either. But this is why this is a bigger question. A lot of times these discussions are focused around, oh, well, you're going to have to go and, help your parents kind of thing. Well, first of all, not everybody's parents needs help with their computers. Let's not be ageist. But also, it's a much bigger problem than that, right? It's a much bigger issue because it's not just because people are choosing not to upgrade. There are very legitimate reasons why people can't upgrade either their computer and or Windows. So let's be really practical about this, right? This is a reality and it's something that just need to be aware of. So if you are in that situation where you cannot, right? If for whatever reason you can't upgrade your computer and or Windows, then the most important thing for you, since you're going to be using an older version of this browser, if you continue to use it, is to be very, very careful, right? Make sure you don't click on any links that you're not completely sure of, right? Be careful about the email links that you click on. It really does fall to you at this point to make sure that you're not inadvertently unleashing something, either on yourself or on the internet. The other thing is, to make sure that you're visiting trustworthy sites, right? This is not a good time to go tromping around the web, in the darker corners, because you have a lot less protection than you did before. And if you are in this situation and you, let's say for whatever reason, can't upgrade, your computer and or your software, but you still need to do things, you're going to run into something else which is going to become more visible, and that is at some point, probably fairly soon this year, you're going to start to go to websites or services or applications that won't work with your browser because they're doing browser version checks because they don't want insecure browsers coming to them. And so you won't be able to access them. And the one that most people are going to run into first are their banks, but it will also, again, be healthcare. It could be whatever, whatever web applications you're using at some point are going to say, yeah, no, sorry, you need to get a better browser. And there's nothing you can do about that. You're not going to change their minds. There's no workaround in that browser. What you can do, if you do find yourself in a situation where you can't access something that you need to access online because you're using an older browser, first of all, try a different device. Maybe you've got another computer around. Maybe you can borrow a computer from a friend, library, whatever. Or, another device like a phone or a tablet or something that might be more updated, maybe iOS or Android or something. If none of those work, then the other alternative is to look at a different browser to use on your computer. Understand, though, that this is a short-term solution because sooner or later, other browsers are going to make the same decision. But in this moment in time, you can use other things. Like, for example, right now, when I'm recording this, Firefox has not made this decision yet. And it's not built on Chromium, so you don't have to worry about any residual effects. So you could go and you could load something like that on your machine so that you can keep going ahead and surfing the web. Now, of course, again, you're going to run into that possible problem of if you're using Firefox, it may or may not work with some websites, services, and applications. Some of them are very specific. That's not as common anymore as it used to be, but just be aware that is something that could happen. Alrighty. So before I finish this up, I do have a couple of more points for you, but I did want to remind you that if you need help, if you have a topic you want me to cover, feel free to reach out on youratechcoach.com. There's a form there. If you have a quick question, I'm perfectly happy to answer it. But if you need more time, feel free to go ahead and check out the services. We can book an appointment and we can talk about your questions, your needs. If you want some advice on something, don't be shy. Also, if you have an idea for a show, my best ideas come from you folks. So go ahead and you can pop that in there too. And I will make sure to get that into the mix. The one thing I need to ask you is to make sure that you give me some way to get back in touch with you. Email address is probably best, but whatever. If you have a question, if you need me to respond to you, you have to give me something to do it. I know not everybody likes giving out their email address. I totally understand that. But that said, if you have a question and you want me to answer it and you can't wait for me to do it on a video, then I need an email address or something. Okay. So, let's see. We got that out of the way, right? Okay, Marcus. Yeah. So this sounds like a good idea. I know you're kidding, but no, you can't tell the browser to lie about its age. That won't help. There's no valid way to go in and pass off your browser as a earlier version. When I mentioned this idea of when I mentioned earlier about the websites and the apps and all that, check the browser version. They're not just checking one thing; they're actually checking a bunch of different things. Things like the registered browser version, but also different functionality that it has. It looking at multiple things. So yes, I know you're kidding, but just in case anybody else does hear this tip, because it is something that would float around, let's get that out there. All righty. So let us talk about some extra little bits here that could be helpful. I just thought that this was interesting, and for those of you who stuck around, I like to share a little extra thing these days. So here's an interesting stat. Windows 7 is still running on over 10% of all Windows systems worldwide. I was surprised at that, because Windows 7 been away for a while. However, Windows 8.1 is on less than 3%. So the newer one out of the old ones is on less machines, which just goes to show Windows 8 was not great. But I just thought that was funny that it was such a dramatic difference between one and the other. So I just like to throw little tidbits out there. You know, not everybody's interested in it, so that's why I tend to save these for the end. But I did want to get that out there. So the other thing that I do want to make clear is the fact that we are specifically talking about Windows here, right? So if you're using Chrome on any of your other devices, not that there aren't issues around, at some point they've cut off those devices too with older versions, but we are very specifically talking about right now the Windows machines. And just to loop back on it, version 109 is the last version for the older versions of Windows, specifically 7, 8, and the Windows Server versions I mentioned earlier. They're going to keep working, so please don't panic. Just make sure you're extra careful. And if you do want something that is going to stay updated for a little bit longer, go ahead and check out Firefox, because it's a perfectly lovely little browser too. All right, let's see. Does anybody have any specific questions? I think we've kind of just been chatting and being funny, which is totally fine. Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to make sure you had this information, because this is something, again, that's happening. January's been a very busy month. If you've been watching my shows here, it's been a lot going on in January. And hopefully it will kind of level out, but you never know. But I did want everybody to have the important information and understand why they need to at least make some decisions about what they're going to do and know what their options are. So hopefully that has covered it for you. Thank you for cruising by. Always happy to have you visit. And we do this show every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You are always welcome to come and hang out in the chat and have some fun. But if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you need some more information, you go ahead and pop it into the chat on whichever platform you're watching on. I do go and I read them all and respond to them. It may take me a little while. There's more of you than there are of me. I think I'm up to date right now. I spent a lot of time over the past couple of days getting caught up. But feel free to go ahead and reach out. And as I mentioned earlier, if you need a little bit more help, you can reach out at yourtechcoach.com. Hope everybody is having a good start to their year. I know it's been rough for a lot of folks, but you know, this too shall pass, and we will see you again next week. Have a good one. Bye.